So, I wasn't 100% honest in the last RWB 911-964 engine rebuild update. I left some details out, and today I want to talk about the full story of my Fabspeed exhaust. The purchase, the excitement, the problems, and in all honesty, the disappointment. Hopefully this gives people an insight into dealing with and purchasing from Fabspeed. So I've been pretty excited about the engine rebuild for the RWB. New 964 engine in it. It's gonna be show and go instead of what it was show and completely no go at all. The standard 964 exhaust came with the engine, but as we were doing ITBs and a collection of other things with the motor, I thought why not upgrade the exhaust as well. Now time constraints were an issue, and as you would have perhaps seen on other videos, I've got some commitments with the RWB here in Melbourne and in Tasmania, so timing was of the essence. I didn't have the opportunity to really build something here locally. Not that there would have been any issues with the quality that I would have got, it was just timing. I needed to get the engine in with an exhaust ready to go so I could go off on a number of drives and adventures. So the only real option was to really buy a so-called off-the-shelf exhaust for the 964. And this is where the Fabspeed Porsche 964 Carrera RSR muffler and exhaust system comes into play. It's a kit that you can buy really off the shelf. It is a handmade product, but it ships in just a couple of days. The plan was FedEx sends it over, it's here and installed on the Porsche 964. No problems, no issues, job done. So I reached out to Fabspeed, and in all honesty, that should have perhaps been my first red flag. They just weren't the easiest to get hold of. And instead of going through their normal email channels, I actually reached out to a friend. He'd bought a Fabspeed exhaust from them previously. He had a contact, and I reached out to that contact because genuinely their standard email address on their website, nobody was getting back to me. Again, on reflection, that should have been my first red flag. Probably the only red flag I needed, in hindsight. Now, full disclosure, with an RWB, you tend to get a little bit of discount with suppliers and dealers. And I was able to negotiate a 10% discount on the exhaust with Fabspeed, and I think they gave me a little bit of a deal on the shipping as well. All up the exhaust system with no cats and no sports exhaust tips came in at $4,112.98. Now that is US dollars. And of course excludes any import tax into Australia, which is around 10%, which give or take a little bit with the exchange rate is around 7,000. Now to be fair, once I got hold of the right person, communications were great, shipped it really, really quickly. It arrived, packaging was absolutely perfect. This thing was never ever gonna get damaged in shipping. How it was all placed together, very professional, very well done. And as you might have seen again in one of our other videos, myself and Matt unboxed it on video, and we were really impressed with the kit. The welds, it is just shiny and mesmerizing. As an exhaust goes, it looks absolutely beautiful. There's a lot of Fabspeed advertising on the exhaust, but it looks brilliant. And at this stage, it was everything I wanted. But then we spotted something, and Matt sometimes has this bit of a look on his face and a bit of a and you can see him thinking, and something just wasn't right. The outlet on the left header was ovaled, so it wasn't round. It wasn't bent like it had been damaged in shipping. This was more of a manufacturing or a quality control issue during the hand making process of the exhaust. And even by eye, it was out. It was ovaled and elongated. And this is where I cut the last video, and I really didn't want to show this in the previous 911-964 engine rebuild update because I really wanted to give Fabspeed the opportunity to kind of look at it, propose some fixes, replace the item, and then for us to kind of move on. They'd done such a good job with shipping and the price that they'd provided me that it kind of felt fair that things happen, let's give them an opportunity to kind of fix the error. Myself and Matt married the two pieces of the exhaust system up, and you could see there was a 2-3 mil gap where there should actually be no gap. The V-clamp isn't one piece, and it's not for sealing. And Matt, an experienced mechanic, had seen a number of these systems where they hadn't mated correctly in the past, and that V-clamp doesn't pull them in as they should be, and either they leak at that time or progress over a period of time so that you get a faulty exhaust system with gas leaks. Obviously, with all the work that we've done on the Porsche 964 engine, we needed it to be perfect. We didn't want to be in a position where A, we had exhaust leaks on day one, or perhaps in a year's time, we'd start to get exhaust leaks from that area because it had been weakened and stressed, and that clamp hadn't really done a job which it was genuinely not designed to do. I contacted Fabspeed, showed them photos of the exhaust and the two components mated together. When it's actually there in person, the oval shape and the gap are actually significantly bigger than what we'll probably show in this video. Fabspeed initially recommended that I use the clamp to pull it back into shape, or that I send the exhaust off and get it repaired at an exhaust shop. Now let's tackle both of those. Firstly, the V-clamp isn't going to hold it together, and like I previously mentioned, over a period of time that's probably going to weaken. The clamp isn't designed to do that task, and eventually it's going to leak exhaust gases. The other part of it for me, and this might be me being a little bit picky, is that if I've spent $7,000 on an exhaust, I don't expect to have to send it to an exhaust shop, me to pay for that to get fixed when I've already spent $7,000 on the exhaust to start off with. At this point, I was passed on to one of their tuning specialists at Fabspeed. They indicated that they were seeking approval and that they'd actually got approval to send me a replacement part. I'd then repackage my header back in that box and ship it back to them. Now this went on for a few days. It ended up being a couple of weeks of backwards and forwards, which obviously on an engine rebuild like this, I'm starting to get a little bit nervous that this might start to become a problem. And it's fair to say being in Australia doesn't really help, because I write an email in the morning, they reply in the middle of the night, then I reply. So those things do take a little bit longer. But at one stage, genuinely, I was just waiting for a tracking number of the replacement part being shipped over. And this is where it all starts to go a little bit strange. They then declined to replace the header without me sending it back to them first. And to be honest, it was a little bit unclear if they wanted me to send the whole system back in the massive box that they'd sent me, or if they just wanted me to send the header back. And I've never really got to the conclusion of what they really wanted me to do, but it sounded like at one stage it was the whole system. And I just want to make it clear, at this stage, Fabspeed had emailed me and confirmed that this wasn't a warranty issue, that this wasn't a damaged in shipping. They said that this was a manufacturing error. And again, I just want to be really clear about this. The Fabspeed tuning specialist had written to me and said that it was a manufacturing error. In essence, I'd been shipped a faulty exhaust system. And I get it, things happen. And I've had this with shipping things overseas, and all kinds of things can happen. But how you're measured is, what is your response to the customer when you've made a mistake? So at this point, I've got a faulty exhaust system, and Fabspeed want me to either ship the full exhaust system back to them or just the header. Now with any other company, you normally get a return shipping label, they organise the shipping, all I have to do is arrange the pickup. With Fabspeed, it was, Scott, you sort it out, you pay for it, and we will promise to reimburse you at a later date. Now at this point, my trust in that process had significantly diminished. And I'll come back to that in a moment with some words from Fabspeed and their emails. Fundamentally, I was being placed into a position where I had to fix the $7,000 exhaust myself, or I had to ship it back at my own cost, and genuinely impacting the build time and schedule of my new engine. There was just no consideration from Fabspeed at all that they'd shipped a faulty component to somebody, and what could they do to genuinely help them? And with repairing the exhaust, there was no comment from Fabspeed or support for them to pay for the repair of the exhaust either. So I pay $7,000 for an exhaust and then I pay to get it fixed when it's here. What kind of customer service is that? Never mind manufacturing process and quality control. And they previously again stated to me on email that their warranty claim process doesn't apply because this is a manufacturing error. In fact, none of their terms and conditions apply because it's just a faulty supplied product. Now, I'll just pick the laptop up for this part because I just want to make sure I read this right, because this really did catch me off guard. Fabspeed stated, "This is all common knowledge on our website and clearly states we need the system back before we can send another. This is only a safety precaution where people do not receive more product and make a claim and resell a new part on their own." I think what they're inferring there is that they would ship me a new header, I would use the new header, I wouldn't ship the old one back, and that I would resell it. They don't trust me or any of their customers that they will return a faulty product. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with a faulty Fabspeed header and just one of them, but I don't want it. I want one that is actually right. And especially when you've confirmed that it is your manufacturing error, Fabspeed. And it did get to the point where I was so frustrated with it, I actually told them that I will make a product review of their exhaust system, and they still just ignored me. And part of my concern there is if you can do that to me, and at least I have a reasonable social media following and I have the ability to put a video up for a review, what are you doing to your other customers? So here it is. I'm stuck with a manufacturing error exhaust from Fabspeed. And due to their lack of response, ghosting, and general lack of support for their product, I'm going to have to repair. Straight out of the box, brand new, straight off to an exhaust shop to get repaired. At my own cost. I don't have enough time on the build to do anything different. And I'm just wondering if they've exploited that, knowing that I didn't have enough time, and they've just gone, stuff him, he can deal with it himself. So where am I now? Well, in true Tinder fashion, ex-girlfriend fashion, I am being absolutely ghosted by Fabspeed. No response, no emails, no feedback, no support from Fabspeed about a manufacturing error on their exhaust system. For all intents and purposes, they have disappeared from this planet, never to be heard from again. Now, I'm smiling on the outside about this, but inside I'm absolutely boiling. I've spent $7,000 on a product, and the product has a manufacturing error which the supplier and the manufacturer has completely left alone and abandoned. So let's try and reflect on some lessons learned through this process. If you write to someone from their email on their company website and they don't reply, don't buy from them. That was my first red flag, and I should have just given them a wide berth from that. And I know Fabspeed have a mixed review on the internet. Some people have complained about the Porsche 964 exhaust system having a bit of a drone at around 100 kilometers an hour. Genuinely, I wasn't too concerned about that because it's a Targa, ITBs, and exhaust drone wasn't really going to make any difference. The condition of my Targa roof genuinely causes a lot of noise anyway. On the Ferrari chat, there are a number of posts around exhaust leaks at the flanges, with the flange fittings being a bit out of whack by a couple of millimeters. Other posts on Porsche, Boxster and Cayman forums talked about fitment issues and alignment issues. And some posts talk about making custom modifications and paying extra money to just make the exhaust system fit correctly. So none of this should be a surprise to Fabspeed. And on RevDex, there's complaints about customer support, getting responses or resolving small issues. There just seems to be a pattern which is raising eyebrows. So what are the lessons learned? Normally you'd say, open the box, check that it's not damaged straight out of the box, contact the suppliers straight away, and do that normal customer service experience. But in this case, with Fabspeed, it's the support you get after you find an issue which is genuinely been caused by Fabspeed. So I think in summary, buy at your own risk. Based on my very personal experience, I would not recommend buying from Fabspeed, and I will not be buying from them again. Their customer service, customer response, and genuinely their respect for a customer is appalling. It's like they take the money from a customer and then they say they don't trust their customer. The concept of the product that they've got is brilliant, but it's the delivery of that product. What I paid for, the quality of the product, the customer support, they all failed. And this for me is just unacceptable. So I've tried to work with Fabspeed through this. I have chased them to try and get some support and responses from them. And this is my genuine and honest review of their product. Everything I've talked about in this video, I have either held in my hands and looked at and seen for myself, or has been written to me and supplied to me by Fabspeed. So now I'm left with a Fabspeed exhaust with a manufacturing error that didn't seem to go through any quality control process. I'm sending it off to an exhaust shop where I will pay for that to get fixed, and I will progress with our Porsche 911 964 engine rebuild and hopefully get it delivered on time. No thanks to our friends at Fabspeed. So be warned, buyer beware. Fabspeed might not be so fab after all.